Welcome to Go Get Great, the podcast for aspiring entrepreneurs and ambitious small business owners. I'm your host, Brittany, owner of Brittany Miller Socials and mother of 3. Go Get Great is all about helping you make life and business work together. You'll learn about the fumbles that helped get me and my guests to where we are today so you don't have to make them. So come join the journey with Go Get Great. Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Go Get Great podcast. I thought we would do something a little bit different today, and I've invited Grayson on to talk to you today about life in general. So for those of you that haven't met Grayson before, Grayson is, help me out here, what's her official title?
I guess you would say boyfriend in this case.
Okay, boyfriend. So that's a bit of a surprise update, I guess, depending on when this episode goes live. We haven't even told our family that we're back together.
My mom knows now.
Does she?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes me feel a little bit better. So Grayson and I guess I'll share our history a little bit first, have a bit of a complicated relationship past. So we met, how many years ago was it?
6. It was still at Boston Pizza, so.
Yeah.
Well, we met at Boston Pizza, so.
Yeah, we met at Boston Pizza in St. Thomas.
I've been at North Star for 5 years, so.
Yeah, but no, it had to have been longer than that because before you were at North Star, you were at Lamplighter. Mm-hmm. And and we were together for all of that.
But I was working at both at the same time.
Okay, we'll have to come back to that. We've been together for, I think it's more than 6 years, on and off for more than 6 years. I think it's closer to 7 or 8. So we met at Boston Pizza when I was working there and he was working there. So we started dating in July of insert year that is currently unknown. And then I left that September because I felt it was a conflict of interest to be dating one of my employees. Because at the time I was a front of house manager and Grayson was working in the kitchen.
Because nobody dates each other in a restaurant industry.
Yeah, well, I prefer to keep that life separate. So that was July. I left and got my job at JA in September. Grayson stayed at Boston Pizza for a while. You were in school at that time still too, weren't you?
I think so.
Yeah.
But I was out of school when I worked anywhere else, so it would have been like when
So what year were you in school then?
I don't know.
How do you not know that?
I don't know a lot of stuff. It was like I want to say 2016. That seems a really long time ago now. So.
Do you know what year you graduated from high school?
No. No.
Okay, you know what? I can figure this math out. I started Laurier in 2012. So I ended my first year in 2013. So that would have been year 1. So 2014, 2015, 2016. So I graduated from Laurier in 2016 and started working at Boston Pizza that September. So we started dating the following July. So it would have been 2017. Mm-hmm. Okay. Holy macaroni. That is a long time ago. It does not feel like it's been that long. So how many years is that? 29, 21?
6?
21, 22, 23. Yeah, so 6 years. Okay.
So exactly what I said the first time.
Yeah, okay, shut up. You can edit some of that
I mean,
out.
I can understand why you wouldn't trust me, considering I don't know when I graduated.
That's fair. So 6 years. We were like over half a decade.
I mean, when you say it like that, it sounds like a long time.
Yeah, I mean, 6 years is a long time. So we started dating in July. I got a job at JA in September. And then the following January, we both decided that we were done with living at our parents'.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. I was tired of making the drive to and from London every day. I wasted so much time in the car. And we both love our parents dearly, but we wanted out. So, things were going great in our relationship. We decided, hey, why not? We bought a dog and got an apartment.
So that's 6 months? I don't even think it was a whole year.
No, yeah, 6 months because we started dating in July and then we signed the lease for the apartment in January and then we got the keys February 15th, I think. It was right around Valentine's Day because I knew that we got it in January and it was halfway through February. So we got Aurora. So that means Aurora is like 6 years old now too.
Yeah, I guess.
Wow.
She's an old dog.
No, 5 years.
She's not that old, but she's an old dog.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So so we got our apartment together in February and, life was good. And then Grayson was still working at Boston Pizza at that time, not in school anymore. And then you started working at Lamplighter in the rec room. And there was a lot of change for us. New place to live, new city, new jobs. And Fast forward a few months, and I guess we collectively decided that we should get a house, because my opinion on renting has always been that it's like burning money. I would much rather be making the same payments towards a house that I have collateral with than pay someone else. So we purchased our first house in September of 2017, I guess.
Yeah. Not to mention you literally can't stop yourself from interior decorating to the point the walls wouldn't be usable anymore.
So yeah, that had to have been 2018. So we bought the house in September of 2018. I got pregnant a few months after that. And for those of you that haven't been around that long, we were like completely gutting our house. It was a total rework. Yeah, so I got pregnant. So that would have been September of 2018. So I got pregnant. Well, Thalia was born in September, so 9 months before September. So January. So we'd had the house 4 months, and then I got pregnant with Thalia. We were actually living at my parents' at the time because the house was in such a state of renovations we couldn't actually stay there. There was like no walls. And then we had Thalia that September. So it was just over the 1 year mark because we got the keys to our house on the 15th of September and Thalia was born on the 24th. Yeah, so Thalia was born September 2019. And then COVID hit and shit hit the fan in our relationship. I feel like there had been a lot of underlying struggles during that time, a lot of change, a lot of transition, all in a very short period of time. Most people would probably call that a whirlwind romance and immaturity at best.
Move in buy a house after a year.
Yeah, after a year of being together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe in hindsight, not one of our better ideas. I mean, financially speaking, it was. It was a very lucrative investment for both of us.
In the end, it kind of was a good thing that we bought a house. But
yeah, in terms of our relationship, it was not ideal. So COVID hit and all of our frustrations that we kind of had been pushing down and avoiding, because both of us very much have an avoiding mentality when it comes to dealing with conflict and things like that, resurfaced, especially me being home on maternity leave. I was completely in a state of loss and confusion. I had lost my entire identity. I had lost my family, my friends. We couldn't see anyone because of the pandemic now. I lost my job in the sense that I was on maternity leave. I was a new mother. I had no freaking clue what I was doing. And Grayson was the only constant in my life. And when it got more rocky between the two of us, I didn't know what to do. I was just at like a complete loss, not in a very healthy place at the time, which I didn't know at the time. That's only something that I can say reflecting back on it now. So that was early 2020 then. So that was February. And then March, I got pregnant with Raiyah. Well, there's 12 months in a year. 12 minus 9 is 3. So I got pregnant with Raiyah in March of... Do you love how we math this out, guys? So we got...
It's like I can use all my brain power in remembering the actual birthdays, but I'm not going to remember. I'm not going to remember when you were pregnant.
Okay. I got pregnant with Raiyah in March, and at the time we thought I had COVID. We didn't know I was pregnant. I was just super tired, and I had all of the symptoms. Took that stupid online test that they make you take, and it's like, you probably have COVID. Self-isolate. I did.
I thought we were trying to get pregnant, and then...
No, we weren't. That I wanted another baby, and I couldn't go back on birth control because I had already tried that, and it tanked my milk supply with Thalia.
I could have swore we were trying to get pregnant.
No, we were not actively trying. And it was like a freaking switch, you guys. I kid you not. And I've shared this multiple times, but it's like, if you're breastfeeding, then it's birth control for 6 months, which, by the way, I found out this week is not the case. If you are breastfeeding and you want to use it as birth control, you literally have to pump every 3 hours without fail. Your child has to actually breastfeed. You can't pump. That doesn't count. And your child can't use a pacifier. I was talking to the nurse practitioner about this at the doctor's this week because she's like, and are you using any form of contraceptive so that you don't get pregnant again? Because like your body needs a break. I don't know.
Why does she have to sound
because
like that?
I'm annoyed that she's telling me I shouldn't have another child right now. So anyway, so that was my side note. It was like a freaking switch, I swear. 6 months. And like that, I was pregnant with Raiyah, and we had made the conscious decision that we wanted more children, and I wasn't going back on birth control, but neither of us expected it to happen that fast. We weren't trying for Thalia. She was an accidental pregnancy. And my mom struggled with fertility issues when she was trying to conceive me and my brother, which is why there's only 2 of us, even though she wanted 4 children, because it was just so difficult for her to conceive.
Yeah, not a problem for you.
No, knock on wood. So far, we have not had that issue. And I continue to hope that that will be the case because I want number 4. Grayson's not on board with that plan at the moment, but I was like, I don't want to go back on birth control because I don't want to have the same anxiety level of frustration, sadness. I just didn't want to want more children than not be able to have them. So I was like, we'll just let it do its thing. And then I got pregnant super fast. So new toddler, pandemic, pregnant, which also looks like COVID symptoms in the early COVID days. So Grayson took time off work, and his lovely employer rewarded him by switching him from a straight morning shift to midnights when he went back to work 2 weeks later, when we found out that I was actually pregnant and neither of us in fact had COVID. So that just put us right in the ringer. I feel like that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, because I took COVID leave, right? Mm-hmm. They're not very good for stuff like that, where they're not super understanding. They'll pretend like they are, and then after that, you just kind of get thrown to the wolves.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, that was just really frustrating for me because he would go to work all night and then he would come home and he'd sleep during the day. And I understand that he needs to sleep. But when I was literally struggling to eat and shower and function as an adult, because at the time I thought Thalia was an amazing baby, but it turns out she actually just didn't sleep. And I just didn't know any better because she was our first child. And I was just like, I need help. And it just frustrated me so much that he was right there. And I literally couldn't wake him up because it wasn't fair to him. But it drove me nuts because he was sleeping and I was exhausted. So it caused more issues in our relationship. And we really didn't have strong communication skills back then.
Yeah. And it was really hard too, because it's not like I wasn't really doing the chores, but I was also like renovating the entire house. So on one hand, it's like Brittany kind of had to do all of the normal human being things that a normal person would do in a house, but I'm also doing these extra things since we renovated the house so much, where it was clearly more work than doing the chores, but it's like an additive thing. So It's not like I was really helping with anything, but it's not like I had the option to help with anything either.
There was just a lot of stressors on us, and we were at a point, well, I was at the point where I was like, this is not working. And I had asked a few times, I was like, we need someone to help us because we cannot figure this out on our own. We've tried. And again, looking back, hindsight's 2020. I put a lot of the onus on Grayson. I've always said that I felt he had anger issues. He kind of goes from 0 to 100 quite quickly. And it's a lot of built up frustration. And I was like, you need to like go and have this dealt with. Like, these are not the kind of outbursts that we want our kids growing up seeing. I was like, go to therapy. And he was like, no. So I was like, okay, we'll go to therapy together. And he was like, no.
Well, he also didn't have a lot of money at the time.
That's true.
And it's
Although
not like
it
I was
would
on
have been
benefits.
covered by your benefits.
No, not then. I
Yeah.
wasn't on benefits then.
You should have been. You had
don't
been
think
at
so.
North Star for more than a year at that point.
But even when I got hired full time, your benefits don't start right away. So I don't think we had it then. At the very least, it was far more expensive than my benefits had.
Yeah. We never really looked into it. I feel like you just kind of had a stigma around what therapy was and you just wanted no part of it.
It's like I didn't want to spend the time doing it when I felt like you were blaming me for everything, and then I was pretty much blaming you for everything in my head. So it was like, you go to therapy.
And, you know, for the record, I would have been fine going to therapy.
Exactly.
I don't think you ever asked me to, though.
No, because I thought you would just go to therapy and then not actually do anything about it. Just be like, anyways, I was right.
Oh, okay. I mean, I could see that.
Don't admit to it.
No, I'm not saying that I would do that, but I could see how you would think that.
I mean, you were like pretty bossy back then too.
I mean, I still am.
Yeah, but it was like a lot worse. It was like there was no asking for things, and then when I didn't do it after like a day, it was just like a whole ordeal. So
I can now look back and admit that I did not take responsibility for my half of our relationship problems, and I just put it all on Grayson. I was like, well, he's the one that's having outbursts, so he needs to fix that shit. Whereas, you know, I was probably causing a lot of those.
yeah, I mean, it was just the renovations. It was like we obviously were trying to do too many things at once. First kid, renovations, first house.
Pregnant with baby number 2.
The
New
house is
job.
super old.
Ish.
So I was like trying to learn how to renovate and all the other stuff. So
Oh yes, that was back at our pre-expert quote unquote renovation days. Oh man, I don't miss those. So our issues just like continued to compound, and then we rolled around to summer and I was like, I'm just done with being 45 minutes away from help. I was like, I need to eat and shower, and it's not realistic for my mom to come driving into London all the time. And again, pandemic, and it wasn't realistic for me to be driving to St. Thomas all the time. I was like, I'm on maternity leave. I'm now pregnant with my second child. Like, I'm not going to be working much in the next couple years. So there's no point in being 5 minutes away from work, which was one of the reasons why we bought the house where we did, so that I didn't have such a stupidly long drive in downtown London rush hour traffic. Grayson always worked odd hours and never had to deal with any of that. So it was easier for us to be closer to my job than his. But me basically not working for the next year to year and a half with the second maternity leave coming up while still being on my first one, I was like, that's it. We're selling the house. So we put the house on the market, barely finished the renovations.
yeah, it was kind of amazing too, because there's only one child. So if you think about how much time we had in between when Rhett does anything, there should have been plenty of free time, but like obviously it's hard.
Mind blowing.
Yeah.
But Thalia didn't sleep. Rhett is an amazing sleeper.
But if you also know that now that we've had 3 kids, that they're gonna be fine. He's put them in a chair and then go shower, and even if she's crying, it's not like if she's fed and changed and everything, there's not really anything bad going on.
There were a lot of other underlying issues with Thalia that we didn't realize. I was trying to breastfeed during a large portion of that time, and it just was
so
not
she's probably
working.
pretty hungry.
She was probably very hungry because breastfeeding was not going well for either of us. I literally was in tears every time I tried to latch her, and it got to the point where I could not put her on my boob by myself because it just inflicted so much pain.
And it really wasn't helping that your mom was like, it's supposed to hurt.
Yeah.
And like for some reason you were like, I'll take her opinion over the doctor.
Yeah, for the record, by the time I did finally go to the doctors, I was about 3 months into a very painful breastfeeding experience, and she literally looked at me and went, this is the worst I've ever seen. Your child has taken chunks out of your nipple. You need to stop. So it was a very stressful time for both of us for so many different reasons. And when we weren't able to collectively agree on getting help, I finally got to the point where I felt trapped in the relationship in the sense that I couldn't see things getting any better because neither of us were really doing anything different to change our situation. And it just got to the point where I was like, Grayson, if you will not go to therapy, then I'm done. I used it as an ultimatum and I shouldn't have. It was not a good thing for me to do, but I really didn't want to continue that level of stress and anxiety and, miserableness.
The problem is we were also on like different wavelengths of, I was more thinking it was the situation that kind of put this in it. Like after we're done the renovations, everything would be better, right?
Mm-hmm. There did not seem to be a light at the end of the tunnel for the renovations at that time though.
Yeah, well, they were never ending, right? And then too many things all at once. So I was like, it's the renovations. And you were like, no, it's not just the renovations and stuff like that. So it's kind of hard for us to agree on it.
Mm-hmm. It was a lot of things. Like the renovations were an issue. I felt his anger was an issue. And it also frustrated me too, because for those of you that know me, I have a very go and do and like delayed gratification mentality, and I can hustle hard. And that's not a good thing. I'm not wearing this as a badge of honor. I used to, but not anymore. I realized the downfall of it. But Grayson is very much like, no, I need to rest. We were very opposite about that. So it would frustrate the daylights out of me that he's like, I'm just gonna like play video games for an hour. And I was like, are you kidding me? Do you know how much renovating you could get done in an hour?
She's like, a whole hour? You're gonna have fun for an entire hour today? Like, geez. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, it was not great. But it also frustrated me too because he was on night shift, and this is a continued frustration, and I still struggle with this, and this is more on me than it is on him, but he was on night shift and he kept that sleep schedule on the weekends, and he still does. So he would have, in my mind, like 16 hours of free time every weekend, and I was dying to shower.
Back then, though, Thalia was up all the time in the night. So
That's
it's
true.
like, I wasn't really getting like all this free time. Now I get it, but I feel like I kind of need that time. The problem is I'm sleeping so often and then I'm waking right up into kids and stuff every time. So
Oh, and I don't.
yeah, but you have the like good, nice children for at least a few hours in the morning.
So finally, the ultimatum was decided. Grayson said no to therapy. And then that was the end of that. I think that was 3 days before our house sold. So we were actually separated when the house sold, and it was kind of convenient in the sense that it was easy for us to like go our separate ways because we had nothing tying us together at that point, financially speaking.
Yeah,
anyway.
it's only 2 children.
Well, yeah. So we stayed separated for a year, I believe it was.
I mean, you might as well just call it 2.
Yeah. Pandemic and such. Grayson literally was not, it was like a special allowance. You know, my mom felt like she was gifting me this amazing thing, letting Grayson and his mom come over for, I kid you not, 15 minutes, like 2 weeks after Raiyah was born, so that Grayson could meet his child. And like, I understand where she was coming from. You know, I was pregnant. I was high risk. My dad's high risk. He's diabetic. My brother has health problems. He's high risk. My mom's in that higher age bracket. So in her mind, she's high risk, even though she doesn't really have health problems. And she was just in a very perpetual state of fear that this COVID virus was going to kill us. I don't actually think any of us ever got COVID during COVID, you know, thankfully, knock on wood. So we never had to like experience that. And I'm grateful for that. But it was really frustrating because I felt like it was causing issues in our co-parenting relationship, not necessarily with Grayson. I think he understood that, but I was worried about what my not in-laws thought about that. You know, like I've had this, well,
like your family?
No, your parents.
Not in-laws.
We weren't together. What do I? That I was like withholding this child because Grayson and I weren't together. And I'm pretty sure at some point your parents were like, you need to take Brittany to court for a custody agreement.
No, they never said that.
Okay, thankfully. I felt like they would do that.
My parents are very understanding people, and they don't bite in other people's business. And you know where I get it from now. Mm-hmm. I like just don't really. I mean, my dad probably might have said something like that.
At some point you told me they were concerned that I was going to like take our children and you would never see them again.
My mom sometimes will say things that are like way out of left field. Like she would never do that in a million years. I know my dad said something about getting like a contract for child support and stuff like that. And I'm like, guys, we're not dealing with a horrible person. It's not like we were throwing stuff at each other.
No, there was never animosity between us. And like, honestly, our co-parenting was very good. It was not the co-parenting that we struggled with. It was the relationship piece that we struggled with.
I mean, it didn't help either that I would have to go to like your mom's place, which is not, it's very hard for me to be there because she has her rules that aren't listed. So it's like I can't really just do whatever.
Mm-hmm. You know, this reminds me of, I don't know whether any of you guys watch this, but NCIS. I don't think you've ever seen that. But like the classic NCIS with like Gibbs, and he has like all these rules about how to be an NCIS agent that he's teaching people, but they're not written down. So like you'll just magically do something and he'll be like, at rule number 13. And you're like, what the fuck?
It was like, God forbid I did the dishes. It was like,
man, she hated it.
It was like
that.
anytime I tried to help out, it was like, okay, never mind. I'll just.
My mom has a very right and wrong way to do everything. Now you guys know where I get it from. And, you know, she doesn't always verbalize what the right way to do things is. And then she gets frustrated when people don't do it that way.
She won't say anything while you're doing it either.
No.
Like, I'll hear it from Brittany later.
She'll complain to me about it. Yeah, she's, I don't know, passive aggressive, is that the term?
Well, she just doesn't want to be rude, right? Mm-hmm. So she just tells you later. But yeah, it just made it really hard for me to be at the house because I could feel the look. It's like, are you touching my soap? I don't think I said you could do that.
Yeah, so actually at some point Grayson moved into my parents' house with me for a little while.
Yeah, that was because my parents sold their house.
Yeah, so this was, and we were like back together at that point. So
no, I don't think we were, not the start at least.
No, and then at some point it was really weird. We were like literally sharing a bed. Do you guys think it's strange that Grayson rents the basement from me? We were not together and we slept in the same bed at my parents' house.
It was a lot weirder. Yeah, it was ridiculous. People were like, what are you doing? I'm like, my parents sold the house. I don't know what you want me to do.
Yeah, it was like that or sleeping in his car. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
So we did that for a little while and then we got back together and then things did not really get better still because, you know, then we were living at my parents and there were other problems. So we separated and then we still decided to buy a house together because neither of us enjoyed living at my parents' house.
Yeah. And it was, you know, how the whole housing market and renting is. So I think it was even worse back when we were doing that. We were like, we just need another person to help with this. And there are no other people and we both want a house. Mm-hmm. And I think we're very strange people where we could just kind of
Yeah, I was
chill
gonna say,
in the same area.
I don't really like sharing a house with someone that I don't know. Like, I was fine with it. I had roommates in university that I didn't know. One of them was even a guy. I felt a little weird about that, but I felt super uncomfortable with the idea of someone that I didn't know living in my house with my children.
Yeah. Plus,
that was my
you
thing.
know that I'll just like keep to myself. Like, I'll just sit in the basement all day if you don't want to see me. It doesn't.
Oh yeah, I was fully aware of that. You know, Grayson was living at my parents' house, and there were times where I literally just didn't see him because he never came out of my bedroom because he didn't want to interact with my mom.
Oh yeah.
So we ended up buying a house together. So we were not together at this point. So this was that was a year and a half ago. And
Wow, we did a lot of work in a year and a half. We did this house so much faster than the other one.
Well, we had less stuff to do. We literally tore the walls out of the other one.
I feel like we still could have got it done faster than we did
compared
to how fast we did this one. I mean, obviously we took breaks between.
We didn't have to like
rooms,
do the roof on this one, and we weren't ripping walls down. And Grayson's now like an unofficially certified contractor. So we bought a house and then still weren't together. And then we lived here for a while, did some more renovations. I moved in because I wasn't living here with the girls for the first little while during the renos. Grayson probably appreciated that time a lot better.
No, well, it was not a very livable house.
No, he just wanted it at my parents' house and didn't have anywhere else to go. And then last year hit and I started this hobby project, and then I quote unquote lost my job due to lack of childcare. And I talked to Grayson and I was like, look, our options are I need extra help from you or I lose the house. And neither of us really wanted that. So Grayson picked up a lot of slack in terms of watching the kids and doing housework. And again, still not together. And it took me until the end of the year when I was doing some reflecting and I went, you know, there are not a lot of guys, like partners, that would be willing to pick up as much of the workload as Grayson did for me, let alone exes that would do that just to help out the mother of their children. And
I mean, part of it is that it wasn't getting done either. It was like watching the dishes fill the sink. It was like I need to use this too. So there was a lot of stuff that was just you needed to work, and then it just wasn't getting done. But at the same time, it's not like that was the only reason. Like, I wouldn't have just done all of the dishes every day if that was the only case.
And I mean, I'm sure part of it too was that you didn't want to have to move again.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't think you would have kicked me out or anything, though.
If I lost the house, I would have also been kicked out.
Sure, but I would have just paid more at that point.
Fair. So at the end of last year, I kind of did some reflecting and I went, you know, I still really like Grayson. Like, we didn't separate because I didn't love him anymore. We separated because we couldn't figure out how to live together and life together in a way that worked for both of us. And prior to this even understanding, though, I was like, you know, we still do have some issues. We tend to argue a lot over the division of chores still. Brittany not loading dishes into the dishwasher.
Very minimal arguments where Brittany goes like, I will start doing it, and then she does it, and then I've given up.
Yeah. And a lot of it too is like, I'll imply that something needs to get done, or I'll say, oh, this really needs to get done. And when I say that, that's my passive aggressive way of being like, do this. And Grayson just goes, and then doesn't. And that used to drive me insane.
There's only so much time in the day.
So I was like, okay, before we have a third child, which Grayson volunteered to help me with, that was a planned conception this time. I was like, you know what? I'm not getting any younger. My previous dating attempts while we were separated are not going well.
Which amazingly, this one took the longest.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, almost had a hard time with it.
It was still only like 2 or 3 months, realistically. So I was like, you know what, Gray, I really want to have another child. I don't want to wait until I'm in a serious relationship or until I'm just like casually seeing someone, because I don't want to have to deal with the headache of custody agreements if I have a kid with someone else that I'm not staying with. And then all my kids have the same genetics. And like, there's a lot of reasons, but those were some of the big ones. I was like, will you help me have another child? So he's like...
Such a weird way of phrasing it.
Well, what else are you supposed to say?
I don't know.
And his question was... Well, his immediate response was yes. Really want another child. So obviously we conceived Rhett. He exists. He's here now. We are very grateful for him. But prior to his arrival, I was like, we still have some of these things that frustrate both of us. Would you consider going to co-parenting counseling? maybe if I phrase it that way, he'll be more receptive to it because we're helping with our parenting skills. So this was a very long-winded introduction to the fact that today we're going to be talking about that experience with you and kind of how we do what it is that we do. Because I get asked a lot, how do you do so much? I was like, yeah. And a lot of the reason that I can do so much is because I have so much support. Thank you, Grayson. And also thank you a little bit to both of our moms who do help out with childcare and watching the girls for us. But really one of the big things is his support, but also learning to work together instead of against each other. So co-parenting has been really helpful for us with that. And we really only started that in November of last year.
Yeah. I mean, it hasn't been that long. We really haven't done that many sessions.
No.
Because we sometimes don't even do them once a month. I feel like
we were doing them every couple weeks for a little while. Right. So I think when we were like starting those sessions, I kind of was starting to have this little bit of an epiphany of, you know what, like you really do want to try it.
Grayson's not as bad as I thought he was. When I was yelling at him to do all of the renovations in a month, maybe I was...
No, keep going. It's fair. It's warranted. I was like, okay, well, maybe if we do some co-parenting, it would also help us work through some of the relationship problems that we have. So we're in the first session and she is like, so what's your goal of the session? And I was like, well, maybe we could like think about getting back together.
I was like, later, I was like, no. And it wasn't because I necessarily didn't really want to get back together. I just didn't want to deal with another person in general. But I just mean like, I don't really like dealing with people in the first place. So it just felt like a lot of work for something that I didn't care that much about, like relationships in general, not Brittany. So I didn't really mind not being in a relationship. It just felt like the pressure of just having somebody because society kind of says you should be dating somebody or in a relationship. So
I'm a convenience. I'm a check mark.
Yeah. No, it's not. I mean, that's not what I was thinking when we were getting back together. But I just mean when I first started dating in the first place, like, well, I have to do this, but you don't have to if you don't feel like you need to.
So we started doing co-parenting counseling therapy together in the fall. And I was like, maybe we'll get back together. And Grayson was like, hard no on that one. I was like, okay, we're just going to pretend that didn't really wound my ego. But like, damn. So then I had like a mini quarter life crisis. And I was like, the fuck, the only person that, on the planet that should theoretically want to spend their life with me because, we've been together on and off for 5 years and have 3 children together and live in the same house, no longer wants me. What the fuck am I gonna do?
Well, also, it didn't help that when we were at your parents' house and then we were back together, you were like, I'm just not happy. And out of nowhere, like in the middle, and it was like, okay, well, I don't want to deal with that 5 more times in my life, so. Okay,
that's fair. However, the difference between then and now is the amount of personal development that I've done.
Which I can't see, so I wouldn't have known.
No, that's fair.
I mean, I can now, but.
Thank you to Body for helping me get started with that, because the concept of personal development was not something that existed in my life at the time. And it was really getting started with that I started doing a lot of reading and independent study and listening to independent study. Man, I am such a student at heart. Self-reflection, yeah. And journaling and gratitude and manifesting and all of that woo-woo stuff that everyone's like, I was like, well, let me tell you, it works.
Think self-reflection, I don't think anybody would say, that's weird.
No. So I started doing a lot of that, and that's what really opened my eyes to the fact that, I was half of the problem in our relationship. And, telling Grayson that I wasn't happy, probably acceptable.
Yes.
But I didn't phrase it in a way that made it seem like I am unhappy as a statement, not I am unhappy with you.
It's not like I held it against you or anything. It was just like, if we got back together, how many more times was that going to happen? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So anyway, we continued doing these sessions because I was like, well, even if he doesn't want to get back together, maybe we can at least make cohabitating better. And, throughout some of those sessions, our therapist is, wow, like, you guys are actually really good co-parents. Like, you've done so much stuff together that would usually separate a lot of couples. Renovation, big moves, career changes. You now have 3 children. You've got your own business. Like, you guys are stressed out. You do not have the supports that you need. But I feel like through a lot of that, we were able to work on our communication skills.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that we did to help?
It's just the nice thing about counseling and stuff like that is being in a situation where you can talk about things before there's like an issue and with somebody else there.
Safe space.
Let's say Brittany was like, why isn't the laundry done or something? And then all of a sudden I'm mad and she's mad and now we can't have a realistic conversation because we're just angry at each other. So
because that's what used to happen at Pearl Street. We would try and have discussions and I was an emotional disaster, postpartum hormones and all of that fun stuff. And just in general, sad and lonely and frustrated and confused and really, really lost. And I'd be like, Grayson, this is what's bothering me. And then Grayson would get defensive because it was usually something about him. And then I would start crying and he would start yelling. And then it was never a good time, guys. And then I start yelling when I get defensive. So it was just, it was bad.
You would also act like a parent. It'd be like, why isn't this done? You would like go into a lecture rather than an actual communicative manner. And, you're very much on the lecture, bossy kind of front of things.
There's a reason I'm a manager, guys. There's a reason it's on my resume.
It's like amazing where it's like literally the answer to every single thing is just communicate. It's like 99% of all problems could just be the therapist going, well, have you just talked to each other about it? And then you have a conversation about it and then it's like not even an issue anymore.
But I think that it was a little bit more than you need to have a conversation about it. It was, okay, well, how can you have this conversation and actually make it through to the end of the conversation and have some sort of resolution? So she was talking and she would ask a lot of times too, and Grayson, how do you feel when Brittany says this? And what does this trigger for you? And I feel like that at least it helped me identify the underlying feelings of why I got defensive or why I would feel offensive when I needed to talk to you about this stuff. I'd be like, okay, I need to talk to Grayson about this tonight. And this is probably what he's going to say. And then I'd have like 3 counter arguments in my head before we've even started the conversation about why this was an issue and it needed to be addressed.
Yeah. Cause like the best part too is like, you'd be like, how do you feel about this? And when you think about and answer that question, you go, angry, sad, but you never answered with actual emotions. It was usually like, how'd that make you feel? And then it would be almost a sentence. So for instance, laundry again. Grayson never does the laundry. Well, how's that make you feel? Well, it makes me feel like I'm the only one doing any chores, blah, blah, blah. Like it goes on. So then you get a lot more input than I was pissed off.
It probes us to go a little bit further. So working on our communication was really big. And I feel like that was one of the big reasons that we got back together. Things were good even before Rhett was born. And I was waiting for the other shoe to drop, I guess, in some respects. Like we weren't back together before he arrived. And then I figured once he got here, everything would be super frustrating and super stressful. And then we'd be arguing and fighting about things again because there should theoretically be less time now that you have a 3rd child.
It was like funny how easy it was.
Yeah, like don't jinx it. I appreciate my very easy, happy-go-lucky baby that sleeps and hardly cries and smiles every time you look at him.
Well, it's also, I can't tell how much of it is we've had 2 other kids, and let me tell you, 3-year-olds are so much louder than a baby can physically cry. So the crying doesn't really get to you as much as your first kid, where you're like,
that was one of the
just
things
crying all the time.
But no, Rhett was a very wonderful addition, and he, arrived on his own schedule. Well, I mean, I was induced, but when he decided he was coming, he was out. Like no tomorrow. And then he just sleeps and he eats and he loves us dearly. And having him actually made life easier. I'm going to get a lot of flack from the moms out there for saying that, but having him actually made life easier for me for the first month, because as an entrepreneur, I didn't qualify for mat leave. You can, by the way. And if you want to know more, I've looked into it, but I didn't qualify because I hadn't had my business long enough. So Grayson took paternity leave and he was home for the first month. And because literally all this child did was sleep, Grayson would hang out and play with our toddlers. And I basically got 24/7 work time done. I felt like I was on fire, on top of the world every day, because all of these these things that have been driving me nuts that I hadn't had time to do in my business, I just magically got to knock off my to-do list. And everyone was like, how are you doing all of this? You just had a baby. I was like
going to a network event like 2 weeks after you gave birth.
No, I don't think I did any of that, but I did launch a podcast.
It was like 3 weeks. It was like a very, very short amount of time. And you were like out at a networking event. You're like, my youngest is like 3 weeks old. And they're like, what?
Yeah, I was fortunate that it was a really easy delivery too. So I had like no recovery time, and I was sleeping because Grayson was like staying up and helping with the night shift. And even when he was just born, he only ever got up to eat twice a night.
Yeah. So that was like the one good thing about staying up all night on the weekends. It's like Brittany gets a whole entire night's sleep because I'm usually just getting up every single time or going upstairs every single time the girls wake up or Rhett gets up and feeding him.
So I felt really well rested and able to tackle all these things and still hang out with my kids. And it was just a wonderful balance. And I did a little bit of internal crying when Grayson finally had to go back to work. And since then, life is definitely more of a struggle, but I feel like now that we're back together, my business is a little bit more organized in some respect. And I have 3 beautifully wonderful children, one of which I would like to wrap in bubble wrap, but that's a side point. Life in general is just better. And I attribute a lot of that to my gratitude practices. That's been helping me a lot with like shifting my mindset and all of those wonderful things. And that's a topic for another episode. But I feel incredibly happy, even though most people would say that I'm super busy and so stressed out. But I don't know, things are just different.
Yeah, and like therapy was so easy too. It wasn't like a pain in the ass. I mean, sometimes you'd be like, oh crap, we have a session tonight, but then you'd be like, I don't know what to talk about.
Only because our children would not go to sleep, so we could have the session uninterrupted.
Yeah, but it would also be like, I don't know what to talk about. I don't know what I don't want to talk to this person about this, and then you would start talking, and you just wouldn't be able to shut up until the entire session was done. You were like, I had more to say though.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I guess we did have things we should talk about.
You also just talk about whatever you want, because basically anything that bothers you goes, right? So it's like really easy. Like you don't. It's not like you have like crazy homework or anything to take back with you. It's mostly just. I mean, at least for us, it was mostly just. Have you tried just talking to each other more often, or like phrasing things a certain way, and then you just kind of had to be mindful about what you were doing or saying, and that was pretty much it, and it made everything so much easier and better.
So some of the other things that we talked about in the sessions was I need to stop being like, this needs to get done, and actually ask Grayson, hey Grayson, can you do this? And I talk to more people now because of my job, but at the same time, I still also feel really isolated sometimes because I do work for myself, and aside from like networking meetings or like discovery calls with clients, I do spend a lot of time alone with children. So it's just, it's a little lonely sometimes. So even before, I've always texted Grayson, oh my goodness, I'm having a really rough day. This is what's stressing me out. And Grayson eventually expressed his frustration with waking up to those messages because it kind of sets a poor tone for his day when I've already explained in great detail how annoying our children have been because they didn't nap and all of the other things that they did that aggravated me that day. So now I'm supposed to preface those text messages with, I'm just venting. And sometimes it's venting about clients and like other life things too.
The problem is it sounds like when somebody does that, it sounds like you want the other person to do something about it, right? Or at least from a guy's perspective, I know they're very much like problem solve. So when you get a message that's like, I had an awful day and the girls did this, and it was like, I can't do anything about that. Your day's already ruined, I guess.
I love my children and it's frustrating, but I love them and I would not change being a mom for anything in the world. But yeah, there are just days where that's the reality. So that was really helpful for me to know. And that's super easy for me to do. Hey, I'm just venting, or for me to text him and be like, I need you to do this because of this. It has been really helpful, I think. And I want to say, how dumb is this? But our therapist literally had to remind us after we told her that we were back together, you need to make time to spend time with each other. Yeah. How elementary and yet also mind-blowing at the same time, because it really made me aware of the fact that our time together seems to keep getting pushed and pushed and pushed. And it's, oh, Brittany has these deadlines, or, oh, the girls didn't go to bed, or, oh, I'm tired. And then lo and behold, 3 weeks have passed and you're like, have we interacted for more than 2 minutes at a time and talked about something other than our children in the last 3 weeks? Probably not.
I mean, that's also very much a situation too, where we have so many things going on individually and together that
I feel
impossible.
a lot like we're shifts passing in the night a lot of days, and that's really frustrating. So one of the things that the therapist recommended was just take 5 minutes and just do an adult-only touch-in. Hey, how are you doing? And all of those things. Ooh, I want to share. So this wasn't something that our therapist suggested, but it's something that I found.
After you told her, though, she said it was good. So it's not like it's like an unpeer-reviewed method.
No, and I'll share it with you in a second. So I got these questions from Railey Molinario. I'm so sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I've done a couple networking events with her, so you guys may have seen her name on my page a couple times. And if you're curious, I can send you info. But she is actually a couples counselor, relationship therapist. I don't know what her technical title is, but she works specifically with people in relationships to help make their relationship better. She's a free lead magnet on her website too, which is kind of cool. You should download it and check it out. So one of the things that she shared in an email that I read is talking about speaking kindly and practicing active listening. So these are 6 questions that you're supposed to ask each other, take turns asking each week as kind of like a touch point to see how the other is doing. So the questions are, should we just like answer these?
I was kind of thinking that.
Yeah, let's just do our questions like on air with people today. So what was the best part of your week?
The problem is I can never remember what happens in the week. Literally don't know.
For the record, Grayson usually says going climbing.
I don't remember. Well, I don't even know what week it is.
It is April 16th today.
Yeah, that doesn't help. The actual day doesn't. I don't know. I don't even remember what.
I feel like getting positive reviews from your 2 new podcasting clients.
Yeah, I don't even know if I did though.
Well, you've published a couple episodes for them now.
What is the best part of your week?
This week for me, it was a few different things. So I'm just coming off of Super Weekend today. So I know that we won't be posting this episode for a bit, but for those of you that follow my personal account, you will have seen me talk about it. So it was really exciting to be able to go and be surrounded by other people that are really excited and on the same journey as I am. And it was actually really nice to spend time with my brother. My brother and I don't have a lot of shared hobbies anymore. Or ever, really.
Not a single one.
No, not really. So it was really nice to be able to spend some time doing something that both of us enjoy today. So, and I'm also excited. He told me that he's going to come to Texas with me. He's like, buy my ticket. I was like, all right, cool. So that'll be good. Personally, this week was really good with the girls. I felt a little bit more balanced, that I got to spend some more time with them. Having the sunshine and being able to take them outside, I felt was really good. And in terms of work, it was a really good week for me. I ran a webinar for my business. Okay, what was the most difficult or stressful part of your week?
Work. Just more work stuff. I mean, like, it's starting to get hot too, which is a nightmare in a factory. And then, I mean, there was today where I had the girls like all day. So that was kind of stressful. It wasn't bad, but like randomly Raiyah was like really cranky. I think that's about it. Usually it's work stuff. Probably also just like stressing out about the 500 things I need to do.
We still have that secret project we haven't shared publicly.
Not even that one though. It's just like photography stuff. And
oh yeah, you've got a wedding coming up.
What was the most difficult or stressful part of your week?
The most stressful part of my week is always that I put too much stuff on my plate and there's never enough time to do it. And then I feel bad or I'm too hard on myself because I don't get it all done. But I think this week, the thing that was most stressful for me was Raiyah. I love you, darling. I do. But she fell and hurt her tooth last week, and her shenanigans just are not lessening in any sense. And I'm just constantly paranoid that she's going to fall and hurt herself again and that her tooth's going to fall out. And she's supposed to be on a soft food diet for the next 4 weeks in total. So 3 more weeks after this. And then she's like, Mommy, I want carrots because I'm trying to eat healthy. And I'm just like, no. So that's stressful because I feel bad because then she gets upset. Okay, is there any way that I can make next week run more smoothly for you?
This question's always the worst one for me because I'm not doing it. Like, I don't do anything. It's like mostly just, helping me manage the girls and maybe like trying to keep the house tidy for once. Ever.
I maybe routinely fail at that every week.
It's not like I have this super busy thing going on like Brittany does. There's almost something always I can help Brittany with.
The housework. Watching our children in the evenings. Next week, what could you do for me? You know what? It would be really, really helpful if you would hang the name signs up in the
I
girls'
thought
room.
about doing it today too. And I was like, I'll do the clock. And I was like,
Oh, that too.
I don't know where we're going to put it. So.
These name signs I purchased for the girls before we even moved into Willow Street. So it's been a year and a half.
They were hanging up.
They were. And then they fell off the command strips. So they need to go back up. It's been on our to-do list for like probably 4 months now, and it needs to happen. That would be very helpful. I would like to stop writing it in my planner each week. Okay, was there anything I did that bothered you this week?
You want like a list? Like a list?
Give the honest long list answer.
No, just kidding.
Oh.
It was mostly just Brittany has this bad habit of pulling out the butter to butter something, and then it's there melted like a couple hours later.
Okay, it's Basel, so it's in that state before it even makes it to the counter.
Everybody knows what happens when it's refrigerated and then melted and then refrigerated. So stuff like that bothers me a lot. I don't really have anything that isn't just like nitpicky though. So usually there's something where I'm like, oh, Brittany. This question, usually you know what's coming. You usually know what you've done wrong.
It's usually the same things every week. You've left stuff on the counters. You didn't put the dishes in the dishwasher.
Yeah, but yeah, this week, just that one thing I told you when it happened, though. So. Have I done anything that I have no idea?
I'm trying to think.
Ooh, that's new.
I mean, no, I feel like for the most part, it's been good. I honestly don't really remember much of what happened this week. It was a super busy week. Like every week is.
Were you mad that I was mad that you kept leaving stuff out?
No.
Kept bringing it up?
No. One of these days you'll remind me enough and I'll actually start to do it. It's gotten to the point where if I actually do it once on these rare occasions, I'm like, look, Gray, I did it.
Sometimes I notice you doing it and I'll do that. I'll be like, there we go.
I think it was a little bit frustrating this week that we did not make dinner. What did I do to make you happy this week?
I don't know. It's hard. This one's always hard to pin down like a specific answer because it has to be something outside of the ordinary.
It's usually like the small things.
Yeah, it's just like general, like you being in my life.
Oh, thank you. Look, guys, there are positive moments. What a romantic.
But like, it's like it's really easy to focus on like the annoying crap.
Yeah, it's true. I like this question.
It's like
too,
you try to spend time with me.
I think I like this question a lot, though, because kind of like your gratitude practices, when you ask yourself this enough, then you start to go throughout the week looking for those things because you know you'll have to answer the question at the end of the week. And I'm still not quite at that point yet.
I think it would be easier if we weren't so busy. I think it would be really easy for me to be like, oh, it was this thing.
I think what made me happy this week, not that you asked the question, but there were a couple things. So hearing you say that you finally told your mom that we're back together, that made me happy.
She asked me.
Again?
Yeah.
So I told you she knew. Anyway, so that made me happy this week. Also, going shopping made me happy. I didn't know, but Grayson told me the other day, he's like, I really like watching you try on clothes and being able to give you advice.
I've absolutely told you this before. I swear I've told you this.
I don't know. If you did, I didn't remember it. So we went shopping this week. I really needed some new activewear. I came to the realization that I work out more when I like the workout clothes that I wear. So I was like, I just need to buy some new stuff. So we went shopping this week and that made me very happy. Okay, last question. What are you most looking forward to for next week?
See, this question, I go rock climbing every week. Like a
You've
fairly
been doing it since the
new
fall.
hobby of mine that I very much enjoy. So 9 times out of 10, the answer is I try to avoid answering with this, but going rock climbing. Next week, I'll get like an actual weekend. I got so bad like sleep and stuff this weekend because of
you had to switch your sleep schedule.
Like a nightmare. I don't know if there's anything. It's hard because Brittany's so busy that it's hard to be like this specific thing because we don't have much planned. You know what? We're probably gonna have like a date night, like a proper one that we're gonna plan this week. So I'm looking forward to that.
What am I looking forward to next week? I don't even know what I have on the calendar. I try not to pick work-related things, but it's so hard because I feel like work monopolizes a lot of my time right now. I had tentatively penciled in going to the aquarium this weekend, but I don't think we're doing that. So not that, but I was looking forward to that because Thalia has really been interested in like animals and things like that lately. Maybe I'm just looking forward to not having anything going on the weekend because it was a very busy weekend. It was a great weekend, but it was very busy and I feel like I just need slower.
It's like funny to say because we never have anything going on any weekend. So it's like funny to be like, I'm looking forward to not having anything going on this weekend because we had one weekend of something.
I know.
It was like one day even. It was like 5 hours.
We were such introverted people. It's crazy. But weekends just seem so busy because, you know, I'm like meal planning and grocery shopping and food prepping and doing all the housework that I neglect during the week so that I can work all week. Okay, so yeah. So those are the 6 questions that we ask each other each week. We've been doing this for a couple weeks now. I find that it's really helpful. And in general, co-parenting therapy has been really helpful. I think overall, I mean, we're back together. So there's that.
I just like,
test case,
especially like in those questions too. What annoyed you this week? It's like, then you get it in a situation where you're not going to blow up at the other person. You know what I mean?
Because you're not frustrated by it immediately.
That's definitely like my favorite part about therapy. And you shouldn't really need therapy to do this if you just set some time aside to like basically talk about not just your grievances, but if you can just have a set time to just talk to each other. That way you're not in like a situation where you're going to scream at each other because you're in the middle of being angry already.
And like you could even do it without therapy, but I've heard some people do it. I listened to Michael Folsom Fit. She's got a podcast, Do Your Crap is what it's called. And her and her husband were on for one episode and they were talking about their Sunday ritual. So they sit down on Sunday night, I think, and they go over the calendar of events for the week, who's responsible for what. And then they do like their touch-in like we do. I think they have different questions that they ask each other, but it's like their time to like sit down and connect and plan and strategize. And they said that it's really beneficial for them. And I feel like that's more or less what we're doing. Anyway, so I want to say thank you guys for tuning in and listening to our probably very strange conversation today. Yeah, so thank you guys for sticking around and listening to our story. And thank you, Grayson, for being on here and sharing your half of it, which, you know, we don't always get to see in Brittany's social media posts. It's very biased. So now you guys get both sides of the story. And it's exciting to, I guess, share it with the world that we're back together after 3 months of not telling anybody. If you guys enjoyed having Grayson on, let me know and he can come back for some more episodes. He's obviously very easy to talk to and conveniently located already in the house for podcasting and convenience. But I hope that you guys found some gold nuggets in this episode and that you took something away that you can apply to yourself. Because really, if you are like me and you're running a business or you're a mom, even having a strong foundation for life as a parent or your business or both is really key to success. And the person that's most likely to give you that support is your partner. So getting them on the same page and being able to communicate with them has been a huge game changer for us. And I hope that it'll help you too. And you know, if you have any questions, feel free to send me a DM. I am an open book and I'll ask Grayson for his input too, if you'd like, if you have questions for him. So feel free to let me know what they are and we will see you next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to Go Get Great. I hope you found some useful tips and tricks that can help you make life and business work together. If what I said resonates with you, please share it on social media and don't forget to tag at Brittany Miller's socials so that I can celebrate you for taking those first steps towards achieving greatness. Remember, success doesn't happen overnight. It takes dedication, hard work, and a lot of spirit. So don't be afraid to dream big and go after what you want. Keep striving for greatness. You get closer with every step forward, no matter how small they may seem. Until next time, go get great.